So here we are. Um, it's kind of super for me because I haven't been here for a while. And I'm very happy to be here. and one of the truly hard things for me about being sick was I got pretty sick just before session. And I was trying to think of Dave Weinstein and I were talking yesterday about when did I last, he and I never missed a session. Actually, some others of us like that too. When did I, it must have been maybe in the 90s I last missed a session. So I felt like impoverished and deprived, not being able to come to session. But, you know, and there are other people who think, oh God, session, I have to do it. But it's nice to be back in the temple, is all I'm saying. So, yeah. I'm trying to, who I need in my co-hosting. Jesse Carden, let's call it. Let's invite him in. And God knows, if I've missed you, send me a little chat. So let's, so now we're meditating, in case you hadn't noticed. So, and the koan for today is from great Yunmen, who's one of the most Amanda Boughton needs to be a co-host. Excellent. One of the most mysterious of the Tang Dynasty masters is Yunmen. One of the greatest, actually, we might say. And he's always saying, you know, sometimes he says things that are just how he sees the world, like every day is a good day. And you can see, well, that's pretty good, isn't it? Nice work if you can get it, sort of thing, you know. And every day is a good day. And we can see that's got to be true in some way. And then he says things like, there's other things that are just really weird, but he used a fan, was his Zen stick. This fan jumps up to the heaven of the 33 sages and strikes the deity on the nose. And so that's more sort of thing like, do what you can with that, you know. And sort of like being in a physics class with Feynman. So the, Yunmen, and it means Yunmen means cloud gate, and cloud is a name, and gate too is a name. It's a lineage name for us. Not everybody who teaches has cloud in their name. Well, I happen to, but cloud, and so he's had a great effect on us. And so this koan goes, sickness and medicine are in accord or correspond or mutually, you could even say cure each other. Sickness and medicine are in accord with each other. The whole world is medicine. What is the self? What is the self? And somebody said something very silly on the chat right now, so apart from mentioning that, I won't. Comparing mind is arising on the chat. My suggestion is try and meditate if you're on here. Just take the ride. So sickness and medicine, I think Cleary says cure each other in his translation, but are in accord with each other, probably. But the idea that they correspond with each other is very nice, and right, affectionate notes to each other. Dear sickness, your friend medicine, things like that. And which I still find funny after all these years. And yeah, the whole world is medicine. What am I? And the whole world is medicine. Who are you? What is the self? Actually, literally, it says, what is the self? The whole world is medicine. Yeah. Who are you? And the whole world is medicine is kind of a riff on an old dialogue between old original Buddhist dialogue, Zen dialogue, really, where the one day Manjushri ordered Sudana to pick Manjushri's, there's great bodhisattvas, the embodiment of clear wisdom, saying through koans and all. Ordered Sudana to pick medicinal herbs. Go and get some medicine. And he said, if there's something that's not medicine, bring it to me. And Sudana searched all over, but he couldn't find anything that was not medicine. This is a great loony line. Everything is medicine. And so he went back and told Manjushri, there's nothing that's not medicine. And Manjushri said, well, gather something that is medicine. Then he picked up a blade of grass and handed it to Manjushri. So everything you meet is kind of medicine, right? Everything you meet has something to do with healing and the gates of the way and things like that. So it was kind of wonderful, really. And I think this koan takes me back to when I was very first starting to do koans. I didn't really have much of a clue about them. I kept trying to work them out with my mind, I guess, But at some stage, I did realize that you just have to, in a way, the koan shifts you. You can't make it do something. The koan shifts you. And the world, if you make yourself available, the world shifts you. So there you are. And it's a marvelous thing. It's a certain, like the dimensions change. And you'll notice that when you're sick, I was just sick and I was just in a hospital with this mysterious, it wasn't mysterious actually, but it was mysterious to the hospital because they'd misdiagnosed me. So it was like, they weren't paying attention. They thought, just old guy falling over. It's just, just old guys do that. So, but actually Alison and Michelle Riddle, who's not here today, I think, but Alison in particular, and this kind of wonderful mad doctor who, mad is not quite right, but free-minded doctor where are you from? Myanmar. I didn't even know you had doctors from Myanmar, and a wonderfully playful person. You say, well, you have an infection, but where is it? And things like that. And we started calling him Yunmen, because he would ask you these puzzling questions. You say, well, I suppose it must be in your heart, things like that. And they couldn't get a proper view anatomically for some reason. They'd stick things down me. You couldn't get a proper view. And so Yunmen would be saying, well, and then when he took me over, I was extremely sick, and he said, well, you won't die. Now I've got you. So it was like, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. It's really funny. But because for a lot of reasons, because I was very sick, and then Alison and Michelle just sat beside me a lot of the time, so it was kind of harder on them than me in a way, because I was off in strange realms, and but I was very grateful for that feeling of intimacy you have when somebody you love is in the room with you, or sort of holding your psyche. That was a good thing. And you're kind of half in the bardos when you're that sick, and so you can feel the other world calling to you. So it was kind of nice to have somebody from this world there saying, hang on, I'm connected to you, like a bit of string to hold on to. It was very nice. So I thank them. And what else? The sickness is a kind of consultation with the dark. I suppose we could say that. It's and we have a great deal of brightness in our lives, but there's a fertility in the darkness, where everything refreshes itself and comes anew in the dark. The light inside the dark, like that. And so there's a nice thing about being sick in that way, although it can be painful and you're not sure you'll come through the other side and all that sort of thing. But any real thing with life, any real difficulty or something, you're not sure you'll come through the other side, right? When I was a kid, I was never sure I'd emerge alive out of my exams. So, things like that. So sickness is kind of like that, And in a way, you have to surrender, and it's nice to kind of surrender. It doesn't feel good because, particularly if you're used to being heroic, and it's been one of my specialties. I won't give in to this, whatever it is. But there's something nice about having the universe just carry you for a while. It's a Taoist thing. The Tao carries you. And we're used to forcing things. If it doesn't fit, force it, force it into forcing things in a place. But there's something nice about being carried. You don't actually need to be sick for that to happen, but, you take what you can get, the means you can get, the meditations available you take. So, yeah. And and then it was really nice to be, I'm still actually recovering, I suppose, but it feels great to be back in the community and back in the temple with you and seeing your beautiful faces. In October, we'll have a session. I'll see your beautiful toes. Feet become really interesting in meditation because you're walking around often with your eyes down, and everybody's feet, you realize the whole universe has beautiful feet. So, yeah. So, what else? I don't know if there's anything. There's some other nice things in that. This comes from the Blue Cliff record. This case, which was assembled by one of Yunmen's students. So there's a lot of Yunmen in it. Although then it became a Linji line, a Rinzai line book. And so it's been used. That's how we became acquainted with it. The Great Blue Cliff record. And the idea of a koan is something that is, I suppose in some ways it's an impasse and something you meet that you can't immediately resolve, and you can't just go upstairs and work it out and bring a solution down, which is nice when you can do those things, but you can't always get that sort of work, So there we are. I want to read a poem. It's a sort of bardo-y like poem. It's Czesław Miłosz, and it's great. It's a dream he had about what happens when you, I guess, when you die. But when you go off into that bardo and the doctor from Myanmar doesn't bring you back. So, but it's very Milosh because the world is first of all inhabited by gorgeous, huge women, which is very Milosh. The goddess. It's called a hall. The road led straight to a temple. Notre Dame, though not Gothic at all. The huge doors were closed. I chose one on the side, not to the main building, to its left wing. The one in green copper, worn into gaps below. I pushed. Then it was revealed. An astonishing large hall in warm light. Great statues of sitting women, goddesses in draped robes, marked it with a rhythm. Colour embraced me like the interior of a purple-brown flower of unheard-of size. I walked liberated from worries, pangs of conscience and fears. I knew I was there as one day I would be. I woke up, serene, thinking that this dream answers my question, often asked. How is it when one passes the last threshold? And in a way, I guess every time we get sick, or every time we go to sleep, that question arises. How is it? The bardo of sleep is a bardo too. So we advertised that Tess Beasley and I would be doing this together, and I just got rolling and thought, wow, it's amazing. I can keep talking. So I'd like to hear from Tess now.
Nice to hear you talking. Hi, everyone. Yeah, nice to be back. Lots to say on this topic, but you were just talking about sleep. I had an interesting experience last night that seemed like it very much relates to the territory. When I first started working with koans, and then throughout, but really as I started to get a feel for them, one of the things I would often do is when a really difficult thing would be happening, whatever it was, that's when I would try to evoke the koan, because I had in my mind, and it proved true, that, if these are vials of ancient light, if they're meant for opening gates and doors, then surely when I come up against the locks or the most difficult things, that's when I would often turn to it, and often I'd see something, most then. And so I've been carrying this koan, and the next couple of years I'll be spending a lot of time in Manhattan. So we've been getting used to a new place to live. And one of the features so far of this particular place to live is that in the building adjacent to us, there's a machine, I think does something with water. And about every 2 minutes, it makes this very loud whirring sound and then starts to go, which wouldn't be so bad, except for then in about 2 minutes, it stops for about 90 seconds. I know because now I've counted. many times. And then about 2 minutes, 90 seconds, then it does this whirring sound and then starts, and it does this 24 hours a day. And no matter what one does, and I've now tried absolutely everything, you can't stop it. And so, knowing that we were coming into this program last night, and I'm usually a pretty good sleeper, I can sleep through a lot. I have not been able to sleep a wink since this started. No sleep aids help. No, nothing helps. And so I was lying awake last night by 2 a.m. or something. And I thought, well, the whole world is medicine. What is the self? And at first, as you might imagine, as people do when they sometimes have this koan, you sort of get the screw you part of the mind that comes up that thinks, no, it's not. The whole world is not medicine. This noise is not medicine. This is an exception. But I kept spending more and more time with the koan, in part because I had absolutely nothing else to do except for give in to all the trouble that my mind was otherwise trying to make. And the longer I did that, the more it began to open. Well, the medicine is that things should be otherwise. The medicine is that I think the self thinks that I should be sleeping right now. It thinks this shouldn't be happening. It thinks there's someone that can do something about this. It thinks that, it can just see. And what's interesting about this particular noise and meditation is that so often, I don't know, something appears that might be difficult, but you enter it, right? We talk about entering the gate. So you have pain, or you have nausea, or you have annoyance, or you have something, and you enter it. And then oftentimes I've found you can begin to be with whatever that is. But the trick with this noise is that then it changes on you every 2 minutes, and then every 90 seconds, and then every 2 minutes, and then every 90 seconds. And so what I actually was having to learn to include and be with was that I'd get this huge wave of relief. And then I'd get the huge defensiveness to it started again. Oh no, oh no. And then I'd get used to it. And then I'd think, keep going. And then it would stop and I'd get the wave of it. And and I thought, oh, this is so much like being sick. That, physical illness, but any kind of displeasure that you think you have a something that now I can do something, now I can do the right thing about it. And then it changes on you. And it really seemed to encapsulate so much of what I was thinking about sickness and this koan, which is, and sickness particularly as it pertains to our tradition, which is, what do I not want to include? What do I not want to be with? And I was reading this story this week about a woman who, I don't know, out of the blue, started getting all these breakouts all over her skin. And just, she had fever, she had rashes, she had all these things, and everyone was trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And no one could, there were many theories, but none of the treatments for those things seemed to help. And so she couldn't get, she really couldn't get any relief, and no one knew what to do, which is often a feature of any kind of sickness, that you have all your theories for a while and they might help, but oftentimes you don't know what to do. And she asked her sister, and her sister reminded her of when she was a child, and she had sat, as children are fortunate to do sometimes, she had sat on a wasp nest. And she had a step grandmother at the time who was the town beautician. and she gave massages, and she knew lots of things to do with skin. And she also happened to be the person in the town that would wash the bodies when people would die. And so she just had this way of, she knew a lot about skin. She knew the troubles of skin. And the sister was reminding this woman that when she sat in this wasp's nest, the stepmother would just sat her in a cold tub and then just talked to the skin for a long time, touched it and talked to it, and loved it and listened to it, and all those sorts of things, and that the skin kind of got better eventually. And so this woman, not knowing what to do about all of her troubles, just started finding ways to talk to her skin and be with her skin and include the pain and trouble of her skin. And eventually one night got her very interested in skin in general, which is kind of became a way, I guess in a sense, she became medicine after a while, because she learned all this stuff about skin that became helpful. But she, one night, as all this was happening, she had a dream. And she said, all around me stood ancient Chinese doctors, men and women, their faces fragile as rice paper, skin luminous as the translucent surface of water when the sun shines on it, just so. They were laughing and running their hands up and down my body. And she recognized her stepmother as one of the people among them in the dream, who of course is long gone by now. And she relaxes, and they smile and they raise their robed arms, and on their sleeves were all these pictograms. This is quite a strange visitation, but the dreamer just was laying beneath them laughing. And when she woke up, the fever had broken and the spots were almost gone. And everything started to move. And her feeling was that she had grown a new skin during the night. And so I was thinking about how in my own life, there have probably been 2 or 3 periods where I've been really, 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 really sick for a period of time. And almost always did it correspond to something that I couldn't be with yet, or I didn't know how to include. When I was about 22, I moved to San Francisco from pretty much Podunk, Utah for the first time. And I don't know, was very confused about my sexuality. My dad started dying. So much started happening, and I started getting these horrendous throat and sinus infections. Like every couple months I'd get one. And by the time I went back to Utah a couple years later, I was so sick I almost got sepsis. I remember sitting in the hot tub on my friend's deck where I was staying while I was looking for an apartment, and the hot tub was 104 and I was shivering in it. And I thought, this is probably not good news, whatever is going on. And, there were all sorts of literal things I could point to, that maybe I shouldn't eat this or do that, but really, if I look at these times in my life, what they most accord with is some way that something like that skin wants attention, it wants including. And little things can be medicine too, I think. I was thinking about traffic yesterday. Very strong feature, very strong medicinal offering in Manhattan. And I thought, well, traffic is medicine for my thinking, that I'm in a hurry. It's very good medicine. It slows me right down. And it's just kind of it's a pretty profound thing to walk around and just think the whole world is medicine. When you're in an intact ecosystem, which I suppose everything is, but some are more obvious. Even the bones get crunched on for calcium by something else, and even the dung gets used by something else. How the whole world is medicine. What is the self who thinks this isn't me and it ought to be otherwise? I don't know. There's a few things, John. How about you?
Thank you. I wanted to call on Alison Atwell now.
A couple things. I was thinking about, yesterday John and I were talking about the koan and what what we think was going on. And John told me this great story about how when he was writing poetry early in his life, and he'd have a poem that was he could see that it needed one line. There was an empty space, and he knew something needed to go there. And so he would concentrate his mind and just focus intensely on this space and this one line and try to force the universe to kind of shake it down and give him the line. But in those empty spaces, and I guess that's what, in a way, illness is. It's an empty space where we've lost some capacity to control an outcome, or something is happening now that we don't want to be happening, and our ability to change it has been thwarted in some way. And so I was also thinking about when John was in the hospital, and they really didn't know what was going on. And we kept being sent home, and then he'd be in the hospital for a few days, and they'd send him home. And we were in and out of, and then he'd get sick again. And the thing about the hospital is that you can't just go back to the hospital and say, I found this out. You can't just go back to the hospital and say, oh, he's still sick. They won't let you back in. Like at the front door, you can't knock and say, let me in again. You actually have to go to the emergency room. So when you go into the emergency room, you go through, I don't know, it's a little bit like, entering the gates of hell or something, where there's a 3-headed dog, and you have to throw them the sop, and so that they don't bite you as you go through, and you have to give the coin of gold, and there's all these sort of ways that you have to get in through the emergency room back into the hospital. So this was going on and sort of wearing me down, and really wearing John down, and we just were in the dark. We had no idea why he was so sick, and he kept being misdiagnosed. And so, as John mentioned, there's this doctor from Myanmar, his name was Dr. Tu, and when he finally came into the hospital room, it was like already simply his physical presence was, the atmosphere changed. It was almost like someone had opened a window in the hospital, and he would sort of dance around the room, and he would move his arms, like this, and he'd ask you questions. And his thinking was he'd take you inside the problem, so you could feel him. He had entered the domain of the sickness, but he hadn't placed where we had to go or anything other than the domain of the sickness. And he would ponder, well, tell me, you say you fell, and but I don't know. And as his thinking was filled the room with his mind, it was this openness that he then invited anything that you might offer for this mystery that was needed to be solved. And so we had the 4 minds, because Michelle was in the room too, often. And from that, what John's illness became clearer and clearer. It became really clear, and it was such a relief to hear, as John said, hear Dr. Tu say, well, you're very, very sick, and you're going to be very, very sick for a long time, but you're not going to die. So I was thinking about that feeling of absorption in a problem that Tess was referring to too, that if what interferes in a way with the line of the poem emerging from the source of the universe in the dark, emerging from the dark, or what John's illness was emerging from, not from the known universe. As soon as a doctor would come in and they'd know what John had, immediately everything else was not available. So about a couple weeks ago, John was on the East Coast visiting Tess and staying with her for a few days, and I was staying at home getting some sleep. And we have this sliding glass door that, for as long as I've lived here, for 6 years, it won't lock. So whenever, it's like this terrible problem, because whenever we leave to go anywhere, we can't lock the house, and so we have to put this piece of wood there, and it's just all, it seems very like an impossible problem. It's a sickness that our house had. It had a sick door. And so one day I was walking by it, and I just looked at the door, and I just felt, I didn't feel it as a problem anymore. There's just a lot of space. It was like that doctor, Dr. Tu, or Yunmen, as we started calling him, was in the room. And I just thought, I am just going to look. I'm just going to take it in. So I opened the door where the lock was, and I just was absorbed. I just fell in love with the problem in a way. I just fell in love with the situation without the irritation, without the, oh, this can't be happening. That noise is keeping me awake, needs to stop. The door needs to lock because we're leaving town. It was just this sort of opening of immense interest in the space of the door not closing, of the sickness. And I sort of moved it around, and I was playing with things, and suddenly I realized what the problem was, that the latch where it hooked was too low. And so I just moved it up, and suddenly click. And there it was, it could lock. And I swear, I almost called John right then. I was so happy. But I was very interested in the way what I think should be happening, that kind of, did you hear that? Motorcycle just go by? That should not be happening.
That's for Tess.
So I'll leave it at that.
Eduardo Fuentes, I think you can hear me.
Yes.
You've been letting sickness come to you and all that. And so, I don't know. I don't really care about that, I guess, but I care about having your voice in here.
Thank you.
What would you like
Thank
to
you,
say?
John.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of you know that I was diagnosed with a multiple myeloma at the end of last year. I have been with chemotherapy since January. And now the symptoms, all the indicators have disappeared from my blood and also from the bone marrow. They took samples of bone marrow and they detected that there are no cancerous cells there. So I'm very happy to tell you and inform you that the cancer is in remission. I'm very happy with it. Things were looking very bleak in February, March, April, and then it bounced, and I'm feeling much better, much better. So it was a very serious illness, and it's still there, I guess, but it's on remission. So I'm grateful to the universe for what has given me.
Giving you another dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's a sickness. Just the way sleep is a bardo and dreams are bardos, and I think sickness is a kind of bardo. You know, it's a different altered state, and just the way with you can't make dreams into the waking mind. I think maybe sickness is hard to make into the waking mind in that way. So it's our fate. You know.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Eduardo. Good to hear.
Thank you.
Glad, glad that you're the way you are. Very good.
Thank you.
Dave Weinstein, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I've been sitting here asking myself if there was anything I would like to say. And couldn't find anything that passed muster as being good enough to say. I heard what Allison said and what Tess said and what John said and what Eduardo just said, and nothing seemed to be good enough. And I was trapped there. And then the koan came along, Sickness and Medicine, and I realized, oh, this is sickness. Oh, this is the medicine. It's the same thing. And I opened my mouth. Thank you.
Good. Still not good enough. You know.
I don't care.
Excellent. Jordan, do you want anything to say? Anything? You usually say things with your music, but so it might be nice to hear from you sometimes.
Well, it's nice to see your face, John. This koan always makes me laugh a little bit. I have, if anybody's seen the movie The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, it's an amazing sort of dreamscape movie, but Baron Munchausen is laying on the battle. I can't remember exactly what the scenario is, but he's laying on the battlefield, bleeding out, and he's saying, "No doctors, no doctors." So I share his deep aversion to doctors, which I sort of associate with medicine. But lately I've been getting lots of opportunities. My medicine these days seems to be the world sort of presenting things to me that I don't really want to look at. I think I'm dealing with them, but I'm not actually dealing with them. Or maybe I am, but like David said, the medicine for me seems to be in the sickness these days. So I'm really trying to step into that and hang out with it as much as I can.
Give me an example.
My mortgage is up for renewal.
Excellent.
Yeah. The list goes on.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, nice to see you, John.
John Joseph, is there anything you would like to say?
You texted me the other day and you said the donkey is learning to stand again. And so congratulations. It's so nice to see the donkey standing. I'm visiting my brother in Paradise, California, and 8 years ago it burned down in a big fire, and we drove through the city yesterday, and there's only a fraction of the houses rebuilt, but it just felt to me like the sickness was being healed, where the occasional house was being rebuilt, and a few redwood trees were being planted, and people were coming back a little bit. Manzanita and madrone, growing, and just this that ATV shouldn't be there. So, just poking out of this world of medicine, and it's a lovely thing to see. This healing going on. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Okay. Nicola is somewhere in London, I think, wherever she is. Let me find Nicola so I can unmute her. Here she is. Oh, she's unmuted. Someone did. Hi, Nicola.
Hi, John. Lovely to see you. Yes, I'm in London. I'm in a big city, and I've been in California. I was surrounded by birds and trees and wildlife, tortoises and deer. And here it's just an incredible richness of faces and activities and bikes and things. So it's a very different world. And I've been kind of haunted by something that happened this afternoon. I was standing talking to a friend and about to get on the London tube, and a woman came up the road crying like you rarely see anybody cry, just desperate, and sort of thumped her fists against a billboard and then said, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I lost the 35 pounds. I just can't think how I did it." And there's a few of us, and we kind of looked at her, and her grief was so enormous. And a few of us got money out of our bags and gave her some money, and she said, "Oh, my mind is just, I just keep doing these stupid things." And then she sort of staggered off. And I don't know, I just, that's what comes to you in the city, is patent pain, as well as pleasure and beauty and things. And and I'm just interested in all the things that go through. Well, it's a whole relationship with seeing that visible pain, wanting to help, not knowing what to do, having kind of standard thoughts about, oh, she's probably taking drugs, or what will she do with the money, or no. And all that doesn't really matter, I don't know. It's just something that I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola. It's a good thing to be thinking about. You know what we're going to do now? We're just going to sit for a little more. And then, I don't know who's taking us out. Jordan is my guess, but maybe I'll read a poem first. He said, enormous changes at the last minute. The Great Blue Heron of Dunbar Road. This is Ada Limon, who's kind of pretty amazing sometimes. That we might walk out into the woods together and afterwards make toast in our sock feet, still damp from the fern's wet grasp. The spiky needles stuck to our legs, that's all I wanted. the dog in the mix, jam sometimes, but not always. That's from Alice in Wonderland. Jam yesterday and jam tomorrow, but never jam today. So she says jam sometimes, but not always. But somehow I've stopped praising you. How the valley, when you first see it, the small roads back to your youth, is so painfully pretty at first. Then, after a month of black coffee, it's just another place your bullish brain exists, bothered by itself and how hurtful human life can be. Isn't that how it is? You wake up some days full of crow and sunshine, and then someone has put engine coolant in the medicine on another continent, and not even crying helps cure the idea of purposeful poison. What kind of woman am I? What kind of man? I'm thinking of the way my stepdad got sober, but how he never told us. He just stopped drinking and sat for a long time in the low folding chair on the Bermuda grass, reading and sometimes soaking up the sun like he was the story's only subject. When he drove me to school, we decided it would be a good day. It would be a good day if we saw the blue heron in the algae-covered pond next to the road, so that if we didn't see it, I'd be upset. If we didn't see it, I'd be upset. Then he began to lie, to tell me he'd seen it when he hadn't, or to suppose it had just taken off when we rounded the corner in the grey car that somehow still ran. And I would lie too, for him. I'd say I saw it, heard the whoosh of wings over us. That's the real truth, what we told each other to help us through the day. The great blue heron was there even when the pond dried up or froze over. It was there because it had to be. Just now I felt like I wanted to be alone for a long time. In a folding chair on the lawn with all my private agonies. But then I saw you and the way you're hunching over your work like a puzzle. And I think, even if I fail at everything, I still want to point out the heron like I was taught. Still want to slow the car down to see the thing that makes it all better, the invisible gift, what we see when we stare long enough into nothing. So, there we are. I suppose that's what Zazen is, staring into nothing. You know, it's like, what comes next? Nothing comes next. This is it.